Hi everybody, Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape. It is Monday, January 29th, and I'm so happy that you've taken time out of your schedule to join me tonight. I really do appreciate it. And whether you're watching it live or on replay, either way is great. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and I've been making cards for many years. And my goal is to simply spread joy one card at a time. And that may be by sending it out to somebody, or it may be by helping somebody, show somebody how they too can create pretty cards without a lot of effort. And so that's kind of my goal as I'm sharing these videos. I'm hoping that I'm inspiring you to perhaps try something new or a different technique, if nothing else. It has been a very warm week for us here in Minnesota. We actually have no snow on the ground. I look out my front door and I have no snow on my ground. I have no snow on the backyard. It's just very strange, and it does not sound like we're going to have any snow. Today we hit a high of 48. Tomorrow we may actually see a 50, so I'm kind of excited about that. Took the dog for a walk, and for the first time in a really long time, I didn't have to worry about slipping on ice or anything like that. Usually in the winter months, I don't walk outside a lot just because I'm afraid of falling on the ice, and it's just not an issue. We have no snow, so I know we'll regret it in the spring, but you know, when our ground is super dry. But right now I'm very happy that I don't have to worry about a few things, at least associated with the ice and the snow and the cold weather. All right, I've got myself on the right Facebook page here too. I hope everybody had a great week. I was lucky and got to spend a couple days with Cece this week. One of the days I had to go down because my son needed to attend court for some of the people he works with, and ends up the cases both settled before he got down there. So before I got down there, but I was only 10 minutes out. So said I'm coming anyhow. So I got to spend some time with Joe and Cece, and then on Saturday we went back down and got to spend the whole day with them. John and Joe got a few things done around the house, and then we were able to eat dinner together. Jose brought some pizza home, and it was just a very nice time to spend with them. And the other thing I did that I haven't done in a really long time is I started sewing this weekend. One of my goals right now while I'm not working is to try to get some of my unfinished projects done. And that goes anywhere from painting walls in my house to some craft projects that have been sitting around. So I've actually started sewing a quilted tote bag. I think I got the quilt pieces and stuff. I don't know, Jody or Ann, maybe you can help me if you're watching this. Probably 8 years ago on one of my camping trips up north. There's a good quilt shop. So I'm trying to get that put together, and then we'll see if I'm ready to tackle the other quilting thing that I got. And then, pretty much that's kind of where I'm at. I am decluttering my house this year too, so I have gotten through the kitchen and dining room area, which in my house is kind of one big space. So the project to tackle for February is going to be that hall closet. I don't know if yours closet's like mine, but it can get set up real neat, and then after a couple days maybe, everything just starts to get thrown into the back and tossed into the back, and after a while you can't find anything, or you have to just dig through stuff anyhow. So that's going to be my project for the month of February, to declutter that hall closet. Enough about me. Again, I hope everybody's having a good week. I am going to flip my camera over and we're going to get started on this card. This is actually, for me, a new technique. It is not new to Stampin' Up. They have had them. I've just never gotten them, and that's the decorative masks. And I actually ended up with this suite because I participated in early January in a catalog launch party, and as part of that I showcased the, sorry, I'm trying to get stuff centered here because I need to have some space for working today. Anyhow, I participated in a catalog launch party showcase, and this is the set that I was lucky enough to get to do, and I actually chose it because I wanted to try these masks. So I thought, what better opportunity to do it. So First I'm going to show you the stamp set, and this is found on page 38 of the January to April mini catalog, and it includes a stamp set, some dies, and a set of decorative masks. There's a total of 5, and they actually all work together to create a cool coloring technique. And I wasn't so sure, but I've tried a couple different things with these now, and I just want to let you look at them and see what you think. And the great thing about this is if you just want the stamps and you don't want to go with the masks, you can do that as well. The dies, I really like the shape of this label, and it fits a lot of sentiments, not just these. And you could just color this once you've stamped it. I like the dies because of those leaves and the little flowers too. But anyhow, page 38. And I just want to show you, because for me, it always helps to be able to see what I'm looking at here. So this is what the large image looks like when it is stamped. And I just used Memento black ink. I have found that because this is such a large stamp, you do want to make sure you're pressing down using the foam, because it is a photopolymer stamp. So you want to make sure that you're really getting that center area on here. But it stamps really well, and then the die is very easy to line up and cut out too. And then on the other side here, I've got the shape of all the dies. What's nice about this is you get 2 of the big leaves, 2 of the single leaves, and 2 of these little flowers. However, these aren't the same shape, so even though you're able to cut multiples of these out, they're all actually slightly different shapes. So this is one die, that's a die, and then of course each of these are a single die. And then that's what the shape looks like for the sentiment. And here's how the stamps fit on there. I just shortened this one up by cutting it part way and then flipping it around and running it back through my die so that it's the same shape, just shorter, and it fit that sentiment. I can do a quick video on that maybe and just post it another time, but that's just a quick way of increasing the versatility of your die. And then these little flowers, they're so cute because it can be used singly with just that outline, or even the solid if you wanted it. But here I did first generation stamping for the outline, and then second generation stamping for the inside of the flower. And look how nicely they line up too. The only sentiment that doesn't fit this is It's Always Been You. And I'm guessing if you were one of those that wanted to cut it, you might be able to stack it up and get it to fit. I don't know. So measure before you try doing something like that. But again, here are the dies and all of the stamped images, so you can see what those look like. And then the masks, if you've never seen masks before, they just come, they're numbered. So there's 5, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you start with number 1 and work your way up to 5. And so this does the solid part of your flowers, and then the next one is your leaves. This does some highlighting on your flowers. The next one highlights on the leaves. And then finally, the center of your flowers. So I want to show you how to do this. And this is where this Glass Mat Studio really comes in handy. I've already had several people join my team during celebration just so they could get this glass mat. And so I'm going to clean my surface off here because I do have some adhesive. I'm using the cleaning cloth that came with the Glass Mat Studio, and I just have it wet with a little bit of water. You actually don't want it super wet. And what I'm wiping off right now is just the adhesive that got on here. But you're going to see me actually write on here with a permanent Sharpie marker, and it is going to wipe right off. And you're going to see me do a couple other things today just to help keep my work surface kind of all contained here. And it's very handy if you don't happen to have scratch paper available. So let's go ahead. I'm going to show you the card that we're going to make today. It will be this layout. It's going to be slightly different colors, including what I've used on the embossing part for the back of this, and the sentiment that we're going to add. I don't have anything I'm going to put on the inside of my card, but this is just a quick cheating way of decorating the inside of your card. If you want, just take a scrap of paper, run it through your embossing folder, and you can add it to that sheet. And I just did the same design texture that I did on the front of my card. But again, I'm not going to do that on the card we're making today. The last couple weeks, I've had cards that have required a lot of cutting and assembling. This card is very easy. You need a 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece of cardstock, scored at 4 1/4. I'm using Highland Heather for mine. A 4 by 5 1/4 piece for the inside of the card. A 3 3/4 by 5 for the front of the card. And I've already went this through using one of the basic 3D embossing folders. These are some that are available through an online exclusive, and I think this is probably one of my favorite embossing folders. And one of the reasons I like this is you can use either side, and it just has such a cool subtle pattern in the background, so it doesn't take away from your card. And then you'll need a scrap for the sentiment. I've already die cut mine. I'm just going to stamp on there. And then another piece of basic white paper to stamp this large floral image. Now I'm using 4 by 5 1/4, and it does pretty much fill that up. So that is what I'm going to recommend that you do as well. And so now I've got my piercing mat, which makes a really good foam layer for stamping. And I'm going to take my image on here. I am not one that's too fussy about whether my stamps get stained or not. If you are, you can lessen that stain by putting a little bit of Versamark on here, and it'll help protect it, but it's not going to eliminate that staining. For me, it actually helps me kind of see the image I'm putting down onto my paper, so it really just doesn't faze me a whole lot. Totally up to you though. I have a piece of cat hair. I don't want to be stamping or affecting my final image when I'm stamping it. Okay, so I've got a good coat of ink on here, and then I am just going to flip this over and put it right onto my cardstock here, and you can see why I say it pretty much fills up this. Then once I have it down, I have found that using some type of cloth, I like to use the glass cleaning cloths just because it's smooth and it slides right over my block. But if I use that and rub it over my block, it does help me assure that I get a good smooth image. And I only use this cloth when I'm doing these really big stamps. And again, just make sure you're hitting that center part, because that's what I find does not always stamp through as well when you're doing these large images. So I'm going to peel that off, and we've got a good nice image. I don't care that I've picked up a little ink there, because that isn't going to matter. I'm going to be die cutting this anyway, and so I am going to clean this block off on my Simply Chamois, just because I'm kind of notorious for setting my ink pads or my papers on top of stamps that are already inked. I'm sure I'm not the only one with that problem. All right, then we are going to jump right in and start using our masks. So one of the things that I like to do is I just line this up using some of the grid lines on the glass mat. And I only do that because it helps me know that my paper's on there straight. I don't know that it has to be. Well, I know it doesn't have to be. And then I just take a couple scraps of, or pieces, not scraps, of washi tape, and I do tape it down. That way I don't have to worry about this piece moving. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is start with level 1 on my flowers. And for me, it's always a little bit of a challenge to line up the flowers. And so what I do is focus on this flower right here because it's facing down, and that's this part. And then I can get it lined up. And this is really only a problem, or only a challenge, I should say, the first time you are lining things up. And I'm totally not getting it, and that's because I'm live tonight. There we go. Look at that. You just have to kind of keep flip-flopping it. Sometimes shifting to a different flower to look at may help you. And you want to just get it lined up so that there's really no white showing, just the black ink from the stamped image. And then I, again, am going to grab some washi tape. I happen to have some that was already pulled. I just want to make sure I haven't moved it. And I'm just going to tape down my decorative mask. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is just take a Sharpie. I've seen people use whiteboard markers too. And I'm just going to draw right onto my glass surface here this little notch. Okay. And that's what I'm going to be lining up all my future masks with, so I'm not having to shift the flowers, because this is the only one that's really got these very distinctive flowers. And then the next thing I'm going to do is take a blending brush, and I have one that kind of does pinks and purples, and I'm just going to rub it off to the side here on my glass mat to make sure I don't have any extra ink. And I'm starting with my lightest color, and then I'll get darker as I add the highlights. And so I'm going to take my blending brush and just get some ink on it. And then what I like to do is just start a little bit off to the side. So I'm actually going to put it down in the plastic where there's no openings and just kind of start circling. And that helps to not get quite as intense on that first flower, the first circling around that you do. And you may end up having to re-ink once or twice depending on the color and how juicy your ink pads may be. And you can add a little bit of shading like I've done with this just by how you're adding the ink. The fun thing about these masks is you will never have two cards that are the same, because you're never going to put your ink down the same way. So this was fresh freesia that I used for my basic layer. And again, I'm just going to run my blending brush off to the side to get rid of any ink that might be there. In some ways, this is actually just kind of, you can see a light color there. It just helps get rid of some of it, but as long as you're using like color groups, you don't have to worry about washing off those brushes in between. And then I'm going to set that mask aside, and you can see how nicely we had it lined up. And we're going to find mask number 2. Those numbers are right up by that notch, and so you always want to put them on in the order of that notch. And so I need to line it up right here. And so by working to get it similar to that notch, you can see how quickly I'm able to get things lined up right where I want to. Oh, I missed one. Nope, I didn't. Never mind. All right. I have a kitty meowing over here by me. I'm hoping she doesn't decide to join us tonight. I have open ink pads. That would be kind of scary. I do need to close that purple one because I'm not quite ready to go there. For my greens, I'm using Lemon Lime Twist and Granny Apple Green for my green colors. And so again, I have a second blending brush that I use on, oh dear, I popped that funny. kind of old school. We'll just rub it off up here on the glass mat. And then this is for the leaves, and so I'm just going to take my blending brush again, start off on the edge, and come in with my lemon lime twist and start filling in these leaves. My lemon lime twist is a little dry, so I do need to go in and add ink more frequently than I might on some of the colors that I'm doing. And again, I am just starting off on the edge a little bit and adding color. And it'll go just like this. And since I just loosened it, I'm done with that layer. I pressed down a little too hard, which caused the washi tape to let go. But I was actually done, so I'm not concerned about that. I will set that aside. Now you can, as you're working on these, go ahead and wipe them off with a damp cloth. I have found that sometimes if my cloth is just a little too damp, it does run color through onto my card. And I didn't like risking damage to the project I was working on, so I've opted to just set them aside, and then I just fill a sink with water, like my bathroom sink, and I drop them in there, and it comes right off, and then I dry them, and I'm ready to go again. Okay, the next layer we're going to work with now is Highland Heather, and this is just going to start adding some more highlights to the card, and I've got my purpley pinky brush here. So again, I'm going to pick up some ink, start off to the edge, and fill in just parts of the flower where there's some openings. And you can do these in so many different colors. Don't be afraid to kind of try around and do different colors, because all you're doing is adding some depth and layers to your card. All right, and each layer takes less and less time because there's less and less that we're coloring. So the next thing we're going to do is go back to the leaves, and here we're going to fill in some of the stems, as well as just add a little depth with some shading over the veins of the leaf. And I'm mostly looking when I line up at these white parts of the stem, just so I'm sure I'm getting those colored as I go through the process here. And again, you can see where that notch helps. I'm not quite lined up on there, but it is lined up on here, so I'm happy with that. And I'm now going to take my Granny Apple Green. I have played with like olive green and mossy meadow, and that works really well too. It sort of just depends on what your color preferences are. I like the slightly brighter green, and that's why I tend to go with Granny Apple Green. So again, I'm starting off to the edge and coming in. And even though it may look like I'm coloring the whole leaf, this really does just have openings for the stem lines and the vein lines on the leaf. So you'll see that it's just giving some highlight without adding full color. And then it is coloring my stems. Now, if you wanted to get really creative and color your stems brown, you could probably take a mini blending brush and get into those little stems. That's a little bit more work than I want to do. So I have chosen not to do that. And then we'll take this layer off. And the last thing we're going to do is add our final layer, which is layer number 5. And that's just to add some color to the center of our flowers. Now on this one, I really do pretty much focus on just lining up with this arrow, because this is just adding color to the center of the flowers, and it doesn't even line up with the black circle center part of the flower necessarily. So don't waste a whole lot of time trying to get that one lined up. And I apologize for the reflection of the lights here. I don't know if I can get that off just a little bit so you can see. So then I'm going to my darkest color, which is Gorgeous Grape, and I'm just going to go right over the center of these. And we are done with the coloring part. Close up those so they're not in the way. And now I will peel off my last thing. And you can see, here's the ink that's on here. And like I said, as soon as I throw these into just some running water, it's going to come off and they'll be clean and ready to go again. The only thing that doesn't always come off is that permanent marker, and I'm okay with that because I'm going to put it on every time I go and work on the card. All right, now I want to be careful that I'm not getting ink here onto my project that I'm working on. So I am going to move those blending brushes out of the way, and again I'm going to just grab the cleaning cloth that comes with the Glass Mat Studio, and I'm going to wipe off where I kind of emptied out my blending brushes here, so that area is clean. And then I'm coming through with my damp cloth and wiping off that. And so now this is clean again. If anybody's wondering how to get this, it's part of the starter packet that you can choose if you wanted to become a demonstrator or simply join to take advantage of the discount. You don't even have to be a demonstrator. And it basically, I'm looking for my Wink Stella, which surprisingly, I put it away. I do like to add a little bit of Wink Stella just to the flowers because it kind of brightens things up again. Adds a little flair. But anyhow, it's part of the starter kit. You could get this for joining Stamping Up. You can get this plus $125 worth of product for $99 plus free shipping. And you aren't under any obligation to do anything. So if you happen to already have a demonstrator, please reach out to them to get more details and find out how you can sign up under that person. If you don't have a demonstrator and would like to sign up, feel free to reach out to me and I can help you with that process. This glass mat is an exclusive product, and there were a limited number available to demonstrators as part of our pre-order. And once those were gone, they were gone. So not everybody was able to get one. We wanted to make sure that we had enough for people joining Stamping Up that they would be able to get them as part of their pre-order. So, or their join order. All right, so now we've got this piece here. The other thing that I want to do before I completely get rid of my inks is to stamp. I'm doing the Embrace the Beauty of You. I think that's actually a great thing to put onto a birthday card. And or if somebody's feeling a little down, just needs a pick-me-up, I think that phrase is great for that. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp my image. Now normally I'm going to stamp and then die cut, because I can always die cut, put the die so that it's centered on my stamped image, but I try to limit how much die cutting I'm doing during live videos. Just because it does shake the table a lot. So I'm stamping this in the Highland Heather, and I'm just going to set that aside so the ink can dry on that. And then I am going to die cut this out, even though I said I don't die cut a lot. I want to show you how easy it is to line this up and really create the card that we're making here tonight. So I just... I don't have to search for any flowers. It's pretty easy to frame this one with the leaf shapes. And so I just look to make sure I don't have a lot of white showing around any of my edges that it's pretty much the black Memento ink that I've stamped. And then I add washi tape or Post-it sticky note before I run it through the die cutting machine. This one is big enough that we do need to use the larger size cut and emboss machine. And because it is a thin die that we're using, we do need the base plate 1 plus the plate number 2. It's the cutting, I'm trying to think what they call it. You don't want to cut directly on this. I think it's just like the, oh, what do they call it? Your thin die shim, for lack of a better word. And then you're going to be putting your plate number 2, which is one of your cutting plates, and you're going to make that second sandwich with the second plate number 2 and run it through your machine. And this is why I don't always like to do this, because you can't always see everything I'm doing, but you get the idea, right? And look, even on that, there's a dimensional that's stuck. All right. All the rest of the dies in this set do fit in the mini cut and emboss machine. And then I just pull it off of here, get rid of that. Do be careful when you're removing the washi tape from your stamped and colored image. If you go too fast, sometimes it can tear. And so I just try to be careful not to do that, although this one is just a little bit. But that's all right. It was just a bit that lifted up, and so I was able to put it back. All right. Now the assembly of this card is a piece of cake. We're going to take this piece of cardstock and fold it along the score line, being sure to use your bone folder to emboss or to burnish that edge so you get a good crisp fold. We're going to take this piece of cardstock and run it, put adhesive on the back. And if you're wondering why I just ran this on the back of my hand, I learned from one of my friends that if you do that, it makes sure then that the tape is always running. So anytime you're having problems getting your tape to run, just put it across the back of your hand. In most instances, it's not going to stick to your skin like it does your fingers. And so it's pretty easy to get that piece going again. All right, and then we're going to take our embossed piece for the front of the card, and we're just going to put adhesive on the back of that. And I like to open my cards up a lot of times when I'm putting stuff on the front, just so I can see that score line and clearly define my edges. And then I find that if I look at opposite corners and they're lined up the same, that the rest of the piece will be centered as well. So these corners will match if these match. All right, and then the next thing I'm going to do is add this piece to the front of my card. There's really no up or down. I think in theory that flower is going to open up, but then this one is opening down, so you can go whichever way you want it to go. It isn't going to matter. And I'm going to take dimensionals, and I'm usually not one that goes super heavy on my dimensionals, but I have found with this shape, I do like to kind of put them wherever I've got a leaf going out, that just tends to add a little more support to the card. So I do use more dimensionals than I normally do, but that's all right. And then I'm going to put 2 in the middle as well, just because it's a large shape. We'll peel all of these off the back. All right, I didn't want to say anything earlier, but those came off really easy this time. I thought I might jinx myself if I said something sooner. And then I'm going to put this kind of in the upper portion of my card because I want to be able to put my sentiment down here. And then I'll just press down to make sure all those dimensionals are sticking. And then for this, I need to have dimensionals in 3 corners, but really adhesive where it's going to adhere here, because if I put a dimensional here, then it's going to be uneven. So I'm going to go ahead and add 3 dimensionals like so. And then I'm going to take my tape runner and just add some adhesive here. This is already raised up on dimensionals, so I just need to make sure this will stick to that without using any dimensionals in that corner. And there we go. That keeps everything kind of at the same level then. And then finally, I just want to add some embellishments to this. And so I'm going to grab my gem assortment here. I think usually I have to grab a couple. But what I'm looking for is there's some gems that came with that lavender, perennial lavender suite that I've used the last couple weeks. And those are all different shades of lavender and purples. And I use these little, I have like a 12 case, I think it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16 actually. Yeah, it holds 16 of these. And that just works real well for storing my embellishments in. I'm going to use these because it's the color that I want. And it goes with all that lavender that I've been using. And so we're just going to add a couple of these to the front of the card. And that will finish off this card. Now I do, please be sure to stick around because I do have a couple others that I want to show you, just slightly different techniques that you can use with the mask. Stickies run out of sticky, I think. We'll put one there, and I think I'm going to break with tradition and put a 4th one on here, right, oops, yep, right in that corner. All right, so that finishes our card up. This is, like I said, doing the purple shades. And again, your layering is very simple. 5.5 by 8.5, 2 pieces of 4 by 5 1/4, one for the inside, one for this. This is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I just run mine through the embossing folder because I think it gives it a little more oomph. I've used Fresh Freesia, Highland Heather, and Gorgeous Grape, along with Lemon Lime Twist and Granny Apple Green. And that is the completed card. So it's kind of just a fun technique that you can use. Here is one that I used, Melon Mambo, and I believe this is Bubble Bath, Melon Mambo, and Berry Burst, but it could also be Flirty Flamingo and Melon Mambo. I made this a while back and I don't remember for sure. I want to say it's actually Flirty Flamingo. And then for something different on this card, same layout, but I used Pumpkin Pie, Calypso Coral, and I think it was Flirty Flamingo again, but I did this on watercolor paper. And so after I had it all colored, I spritzed it with water. And so that just softened up the lines of things. Loki, come. Sorry, he's going to try to get into the other side of the workroom and he's not allowed over there. This is where I just, again, misted it with a little bit of water so it created more of a watercolor look. This I use Granny Apple Green and the Lemon Lime Twist, but on this one, this is an example of olive green, Old Olive and Mossy Meadow for my colors. And then I thought I want to try and see what happens when I don't use the stamped image first and just use the layers. And I like how this looks. This was using Balmy Blue, Tahitian Tide, and can't think of the name right now, Blueberry Bushel, to get that. And again, I stuck with my Lemon Lime Twist and Granny Apple Green on the green. So this is no outline. It just gives a slightly softer look maybe to the card, but just something that you can try. And then there was a card in the catalog that they used, Stampin' Up put the sample together for us in the catalog, and they used Pretty Peacock as the color and some gold, and it's a very pretty card, but it's also squares, and I don't like square cards, but I like the concept. And so I took this and created this card using Blueberry Bushel. No, excuse me, this is Starry Night, and just white embossing powder. And I did a thin layer, so I had an 1/8 inch border instead of the slightly larger border of white to help it pop, but then I layered it right back again onto Starry Sky. And so all I literally did was emboss it with white embossing powder, and here you go. So just a couple different techniques that you can try. If you haven't used a mask before, go ahead and get this set and give it a try. I found it very easy to use. It doesn't take any special lessons to learn or anything like that. The big thing is I think it helps to use a little bit of washi tape to hold it down on whatever surface you're working on. And even if you're using paper, draw that notch in so that it helps you keep things lined up that way too. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. I apologize if I ran over a little bit showing this card technique. And I hope that you give it a try. If you've got these masks or others and you haven't used them yet, pull them out, use them. Post a picture of what you make in the comments down below, or order it for the first time and give it a try. Thanks everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.